Pleasant day to each and every one of you. Professor Arneline Torres here for another video lecture for international tourism and culture. For this presentation, we will try to see the motivation theories related to travel. So, just to connect what you have listened to or watched in the lecture, the last lecture that I have uploaded is about travel motivation. And today, we will continue learning about motivation and will specifically focus on the motivation theories related to travel. So, what are the learning contents for this presentation? First, we'll try to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Then, we will try to apply this Maslow's hierarchy of needs to the tourism industry. We will also look into two additional motivation theories, and these are Hudman's motivation of travel and the push and the pull theory. Okay, first, I would like you to look at this diagram, which I actually got from the internet, and this is somewhat related to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Before we start, let us try to find out who is Maslow. Maslow is a psychologist that developed the hierarchy of needs. He believed that our behavior is driven by our needs and that needs are pursued in a hierarchical fashion. Okay, and he also said that the pursuit of higher level need is contingent upon the lower level needs being met. So if you'll take a look at this one, this diagram here, we will see that it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of the pyramid. And each layer has a label, such as the first layer has the physiological, the higher level is safety. Then on the third, we have love or belonging. On the fourth, we have esteem, needs. And on the last or on the top of the pyramid is what we call self-actualization. Now, as I've said, our behavior, we're talking about the behavior of tourists, just like the behavior that we dealt with as we look into the formation of the motivation. So it says here that as a human being, our first need or our first level need that needs to be satisfied is the physiological. And true enough, of course, everybody needs to the satisfaction of this physiological need level, because of course this is the basic needs of every human being. Like, for example, the need to breathe, the need for food, for water. Let's skip the fourth one, but of course, basically, that is something that is part of a human need, especially those who are matured and grown ups. Then the need to sleep, and what is homeostasis? How do you understand that? And the need for excretion. Can somebody think about that word? How do we connect that to a human need? Homeostasis. Anybody? It's the ability to maintain a relatively stable inner state that persists despite changes in the world outside. So we have to regulate, okay, the internal environment to process the energy and our need to survive. It's actually a way of balancing our life. And excretion is, how do we understand this word? I am giving you time to actually think about this need. Is actually the needs of like, for example, the process of removing waste and excess water from the body. So these two, okay, homeostasis and excretion are actually the function of the kidney. So it's the attempt to maintain everything in our body. That's why, in short, I would say that these are the needs of people in order for them to live healthy. Healthy, well, and without any sickness. Okay? So let's just look at that as a basic thing. Like, for example, it's basic for us to breathe, to eat, to drink, and to sleep, plus, of course, the balance of our body. Then moving up, we have the safety needs. Okay, so when we say safety, it calls for the security of the body, having an employment, having resources, keeping up our morals, keeping up the safety of our family, of our health, and of our property. So when we say security of the body, that means to say we have to have a place wherein we are secure. The body is secure. Like, for example, the very reason why do we have shelter? It's because, or a home, and that is because, of course, how can we fight the weather if it's very cold and we are just living outside just like the animals. That's why one thing that we need for safety is a place to go home after work or maybe after school. Okay? And as we reach maturity, it is expected of us to actually have work because if you are young, like if you are in the grade school, middle school, and high school, you should, of course, depend on your parents, or you are dependent on your parents for living, like for your basic needs. But as we reaches maturity, then it is the point of life wherein we have to learn how to feed ourselves, how to, look for resources. Resources means the income, and that income will definitely come from a work, okay? And morality meaning to say you are an honest person. You are a person with an uptight esteem because people know that you are somebody with high morals, okay? And safety of the family also, like for you, you actually think of not about yourself, but oftentimes when you think about an ambition or when you think about success, you usually think that that success will be for the family. Okay, safety of your health. That's why you go to the gym, you do fitness activities, you try to watch your diet, you try to have a balanced life, like with 8 hours sleep, because that's part of what you need. And of course, property means as you grow older, you want to become somebody who can be proud of your achievement. And for some people, they measure that achievement in the things that they have. Like, for example, when you start working, you will be renting your own place, you will be driving your own car, and you will be investing on things that you might probably need when you grow older, like probably for a place, your own apartment, your own possessions that will make your life secure until you leave. Okay? Then we move up and we have here the need for love or for belonging. This is a natural tendency, or it's actually innate to any human being. The need for love or the need for belonging. And love or belonging need not to always be an intimacy, a sexual intimacy, but it can come from the family, it can come from friends. Okay? So, friendship, family, and sexual intimacy or having a partner gives you the love or belonging need. Then, on the fourth level up, we have here esteem. Esteem means how you value yourself, how confident you are by the things that you have done, Like, for example, the achievements, and also how do you treat people, like how do you respect them, and how do they respect you. That gives you the esteem, especially if you've reached that point wherein you've made the name for yourself. So you always look for that. You always look for people knowing you, okay, and respecting you. And the top of the pyramid is what we call the self actualization. In self actualization, these are the identified needs: the need for morality, for creativity, for spontaneity, the need to know how to solve problems, the need to know how to be fair and not to have the prejudice, and the need to know that there are things that needs to be accepted. Okay, the facts that needs to be accepted. And there's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing you can do to change that. Okay? So morality can be how people look at you. Are you a righteous person that tries to do things right and that you are not actually taking advantage of other people? Then creativity can be expressed in the way you create yourself. Like, for example, if you will try to look back at your old self, maybe 10, 20 years ago, who are you? How did you make yourself, or how did you made yourself to be who you are at that particular stage? Then being spontaneous would mean you know when it's time to decide, when it's time to do work, when it's time to rest, okay? And problem solving is, of course, a very important soft skills that we need to have, because life, our everyday life, is full of issues that needs to be solved. And prejudice means that you are looking at people equally. You don't consider a certain race to be superior or another race to be inferior. And so this is what we call self actualization. Maslow has created this one because he would like to show us that this is the nature of people. And with this nature of people, we can make use of this to do activities, to do marketing activities or marketing planning or strategies to attract the tourist to any tourism product that we will offer. And if you will see in the next slide, we have here the interpretation of Maslow's theory in context of tourism activity. So you might be able to relate, why do we have this product? Why do we have this infrastructure or these facilities? And that is because everything that has been set up or structured in the activities or in the journey of a tourist is something that has been thought about, okay, to satisfy their needs. Remember, the idea of offering a journey or to offering a package is not just merely consumption, but aside from consumption, a higher need would be the delight, or what we call the satisfaction of the tourist. Okay, so let's start with physiological. The reason why there are rest stops in the tour itinerary, okay, not only rest stops that you will see, like for example, okay, let's give an example of a rest stop, like from Daegu to Incheon, okay, you if you take the limousine bus, you don't go straight to Incheon Airport, but instead there is, I think, one stop that gives you the opportunity to eat, okay, or to probably go to the toilet. And usually, okay, if you are traveling like in the States, wherein long distance traveling is really practice because they would like to drive across states. And so, aside from rest stops, there are also the presence of motels along the highway. That's why it's called motel, because it's a short word for what we know as a motorist hotel. Motorist means they cater to the needs of these people who are on a long drive and would like to stay for a night, or like for example if they have driven like maybe 13 hours and they would like to rest. These accommodations are actually very useful for people who are doing a long driving. And also there are vehicles that are used as a means of transport. I always say that the infrastructure has to be complete. And when I say infrastructure, that includes transportation, be it something offered by the government, like public transportation, such as KTX, or maybe buses, or it can be something that you own, like a private vehicle, or you want to, I would say, semi own it, like if you rent a car. Then these are the things that answers to your physiological. So if we will look back, what is physiological? The need for food, the need for the need for food, the need for water, the need for the physiological, meaning to say for your body. Okay, so I guess we get the gist when we say the physiological needs have been met when we come up with tourism infrastructure. And also, may I add, this also explains why we have food and beverage outlets in bus stations, in train stations, and also even in the airport or even in the ports. But these are not only food and beverages establishments, but we also have places that gives them comfort, like for example the toilet, or sometimes they would offer something like a massage place, especially if they have done a very long travel. Okay, so are we clear about this? Physiological. Next is the safety. So how do we see safety in the context of a tourism activity? So, for places that you visit, especially if you will be availing of an ecotourism inside the rainforest, tour tour guides, or what we call the tour organizers, provide guided services for unfamiliar locations. Okay, like as I've said, inside the rainforest, or also safety can be practiced, or safety is also ensure, like when you do winter sports, wherein they usually check first if you are a professional or if you have a license for you to do such activity. Or this is also true when you do some diving activities in other places. And aside from that one, they make sure that they provide services, like people who will guide you, who will assist you when you do your activities. So this can be offered either through government, either to private or maybe government approved agencies or services. I already did mention that this is for your safety. Like, to give you a concrete example, in my place, in my country, we have the underground river in Palawan, which is a very famous destination. So this underground river is inside, of course, a cave. That's why it's called an underground river, and it's a kilometer long. As a practice of safety, people, before they can avail of that activity of riding in a boat and coursing through this 1 kilometer underground river, has to sign in their name. So there is a manifesto, or there is an up form that needs to be accomplished before you will be allowed to get into the river. And they make sure also that you have the necessary gear, like the life vest, that you wear it. And aside from that, you have to have the hard hat, because you will be passing inside a cave, and there are some places that the water drips, or there are places that sometimes there are stalactites. And to protect you, they would usually give you that hard hat together with the vest. So yeah, that's how we practice safety. And I think I can give you another example when you board the plane or even when you take the bus. So what is a requirement before the bus driver would start driving? That you fasten your seatbelt, right? Also on the plane, before they take off, usually they ask you to, to put on your seatbelt and listen to the pre-flight safety procedures. Okay, so yeah, and they tell you also that this is where the mask will fall in case of emergency. They give you the information where are the emergency exits and what will happen if in case there are an emergency. Okay? So it explains, right? Now it makes sense why there are those things. Like for example, like the bus driver would usually probably play the wearing of seatbelt and the reminder, as well as the pre-flight, okay, safety procedures. Then the third is what we call the belonging or love. So how do the tourism businesses, I would say, provide this belonging or love need, or how do they fill in the need for belonging or love? So, usually, airlines, hotels, restaurants have the frequent user programs to fulfill the belonging and the love needs of travelers. So, usually, travelers would join tours or groups with a similar interest or background, or join tours to explore one's ancestral roots. So, how do we see the belonging or the love? Okay, so like if you are a family, or if you are like a couple who will be boarding a plane, usually when you check in, they put you together. Like if you're a couple, you're seated together. If you are a family, you're seated close to each other. And also, when they organize activities like a package tour, I would say a package tour which is not an organized massed tour, like it's an individual, they see to eat that they they group you probably according to your age, or maybe according to your profession, or maybe according to, probably if you're a group of students going somewhere else, would be together with the students in your university, because they know that you always long for someone to be with in your travel. Okay, and also aside from this one, the belonging or tour, some travel agencies would offer a tour that will explore one's ancestral roots, meaning to say if you were born in USA but your ethnicity is maybe your ethnicity is Korean. So when the time comes that you are matured and that you are questioning about yourself, there are activities that offers you to see, okay, the place of your ancestors, or where your race came from. So they organize such tour, okay. And continuing this, we have the esteem or self-respect. So this is where the elite status of the frequent user programs, such as different kinds of membership, okay, or usually like I would like to give a specific example for esteem or self-respect. Like if you're a frequent flyer of an airline and you always travel, they usually give you an opportunity to select your seat, to access their airport lounges, or maybe when you check in a hotel and that you are a loyal guest, they would usually offer you some flowers or champagnes or fruit basket or chocolate platter, And when you enter in your room, you will see that this is something that has been prepared by the hotel as a token for welcoming you. Or another way of expressing esteem or self respect is calling you by name, by your first name. Okay, they just don't call you sir or ma'am, but specifically they mention your name. And if you are that person who heard your name mentioned, you always feel, oh, I'm so special. They do remember me, okay? So that gives you a feeling of of an esteem feeling, okay? That people knew you and that they give you due respect by offering you small tokens or probably giving value to your presence. Like there was a time that we went to Singapore and I booked in a boutique hotel. I always love to use a boutique hotel as an accommodation because I feel more comfortable in boutique hotel. I don't sometimes mind the name of the hotel. What concerns me when I look for accommodation is the cleanliness of the room and that it should be dusty and the comforts of the bed. So those are my considerations when I book for a room. And we were so surprised, especially my husband was so surprised because when we entered the room, the LCD was open and there in the screen is a big welcome saying, Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. and his name, and then a Taurus. And it gives him a feeling of, how come they know us? And it actually creates a delight. It creates happiness to a customer when you feel that you are expected, that they value you, and they show that you are somebody who is special. Okay, so that's esteem or self respect. As I go to the interpretation of Maslow's theory in context of the tourism activity, I would like you also to look back at your tourism journeys and try to see or reflect how you have seen this Maslow's hierarchy of needs from the activities that you have done or from the whole journey that you have done. Okay? And of course, we have the last or the top of the pyramid, which is what we call self actualization. Self actualization is something that gives you satisfaction, like the journey or the place or what we call the destination is something that you really look forward to visiting, like it's in your bucket list and that you have spent like a lot of time working hard, saving money so that you can, make it happen. Okay. So, like, for example, some people would dream of, like, for example, in my case, would be dreaming of having a tour in the different countries in Europe. Or some would dream of climbing the Himalayas or Kathmandu, Nepal's mountain, or probably joining a cruise ship, or anything that really motivates you. Remember, it's still the motivation that motivates you or that you think will give you satisfaction. So this is something that we have to really understand. Sometimes it feels like, oh, we don't feel the need for doing that. But for some people, they have something in mind. They have something that will definitely satisfy them. As I've said, the actualization is the one that gives you fulfillment, the one that gives you steam, like you're proud to tell your story about your climb to a certain mountain or about your encounter with a unique species. So these are the what we call self-actualization. Okay? So do we understand the interpretation of Maslow's theory in context of tourism activity? If you have questions, as I always say, write it down and we will discuss it during our online class. Okay, we'll skip this one because this is usually for students. Now, another theory of motivation, okay, is the Hudman's motivators for travel. So Lloyd Hudman is one of the forerunners in the study of tourism. According to him, these are the reasons what why people travel, or these are the motivators like health, curiosity, sports, pleasure, religious and spiritual appreciation, professional and business, friends and relatives. The root syndrome is, of course, this is what I mentioned a while ago, that you will be going back to your roots, or you will be going back to the origin of your race, so as to, satisfy your curiosity about who you are, who your race is, or when you go back to that place. And of course, last is esteem. So he mentioned that these are the reasons. These are some, of course, of the I would say the list why people will be motivated to go to a certain place. Okay, so this is very easy to understand. We have seen this already in the previous video lecture. So it's just a repeat, and I would say we consider this as motivators for travel. Okay. Then we move on to another theory, which is the push and the pull theory. The one who introduced this theory is Dan, who is an US academic, and he put forward the push-pull theory of travel motivations. According to him, travel behavior is influenced by both push and pull factors, and that people travel because they are pushed into making travel decisions by internal psychological forces. Okay, take note of this. The pushed into making travel decisions is caused by internal psychological forces, and that pulled is created by the external forces of the destination or the attributes. So for us to understand this better, okay, so what are the push factors? Push factors are the internal or intangible factors that lead to the formation of travel desires among potential tourists. It is anything that can relieve and fulfill tourist desires. It's also social psychological factors that motivate or create a desire. Example, tourists who hope to improve their relationships with family members don't really care where they go. The key is to spend quality time together with the family. So the push is something that makes you happy. It's coming from you, okay? And moving on, we have the pull factors. We will try to give you a more detailed difference between the two later. But let me just show you what are the pull factors. Factors that influence where tourists go traveling. So this is the attractiveness or the drawing power of the destination as perceived by the traveler. So travel motivations are based on perception, expectation, and knowledge of destinations. So tourists go traveling with a clear destination. If you can still figure out or picture out in your mind how travel motivation is formed, remember that it starts with the thinking of the tourist, and also on the other hand, there is something happening in the destination. Okay? So, like for example, newly married couple may go to Maldives to testify their love and will not choose other travel destinations. For them, there's something that is in Maldives that cannot be given by another travel destination. Okay, so this is something that will really give us a clear picture between the difference of a push and a pull. Okay, so this is this model of tourist motivation is from the VNR's Encyclopedia of Hospitality and Tourism. So on the left side, we can see the push factors. And as I've said, these are the psychological factors, or what we call the psychological motivations. And to identify or enumerate them, we have the escape, the prestige, the adventure, the benefits, the self-esteem, related to rest and relaxation, health and fitness, social interaction, and interest. And also remember that push is coming from you, and therefore we also have to consider the socio-economic and demographic forces, such as the age, the gender, the income, the education, family size, race or ethnic group, and the occupation. We have seen this, remember, in the internal factors in the formation or in the making of the final decision for a travel action. And then on the other side, if we look at the pull factors, this is about the destination attributes and the types of facilities. So this is your knowledge. This is your knowledge about the destination. So where do you get your knowledge about the destination? Maybe you've searched it. Maybe your friend has mentioned it to you. Maybe you've read it. There is always an information that you know about the place, and that's what we call the knowledge. And what comes with it is, of course, your consideration for the climate, historical sites, scenic beauty, sunshine, snow, cultural events, recreational opportunities, and benefit expectations. Also, we consider the accessibility, remember the infrastructure, and the marketed image. So this is the formed negative or positive destination image, the quality of services, and the quality of facilities. Remember that when you say something about a place, about a product, like for example, your experience eating out, okay, or your experience checking in a hotel, there's always an impression. Either that impression is something positive or something negative, and that you always spread it out, maybe unconsciously or really consciously, especially if it's positive and you are delighted in your experience. Okay? So I hope this gives you a clear picture of the difference between the push and the pull factors. And I think we can have a more clear view of this by enumerating to you how we use the push and the pull factors in travel motivation. So this came from a study of tourist consumer behavior. So according to this study, these are the identified push factors. There are 14. First is to see culture, history, or maybe to admire beauty. Then there's also increased knowledge. Another is experience different lifestyles. The fourth one is fulfill one's travel's dreams, or visit family and friends, or be together with family members or friends. This can also be establish friendships or develop relationships, or it can be escape from the day-to-day life. Or another good factor is to rest and relax the body and mind. You're also might be thinking about relieving your work pressure by going into a different environment, okay? And also, you try to seek stimulation and excitement, especially maybe if you're living in a very busy place, okay, and that you would want to give a kick uh, of your life during like your free time, then you seek stimulation and excitement. It can also be physical challenges, like I did mention a while ago, when the climbing the highest mountain would be the motivation, or it can be to get close to and understand nature. An example of this is the ecotourism, and see different things. Maybe you would like to know the culture of the people, or maybe get to know the people by interacting with them, and at the same time knowing about their environment. Now, for the pull factors, again, the pull is something what the destination can offer. And so we look into tourism products or tourism charges. So, meaning to say, how do you interpret the tourism structure of the place? Is it something that gives you comfortable access to the destination by having, I would say, top of the line, I would say, technology or ways of bringing you to the destination? It can also be the distinctive lifestyles at one's destination. Like maybe you're someone from Asia and you're dreaming of a place that will give you a look at a distinct lifestyle. Okay, I don't know where you are thinking, where the place you're thinking, but it is to your own liking or according to your own definition. Also, you might be looking for an interesting nightlife, like you live in the countryside, and at the end of the week, you might be interested to unwind by having a nightlife, okay? Or another would be the good food, okay? So, as we all know, that Korea has several provinces, and each province has an interpretation of food, and what can be good food and what can be delicious or appetizing is something very subjective. It depends on the taste of the person. And so, if that is the come on of the place, like I think Koreans will agree with me if I tell you Jeonju. Okay, then also convenient transportation. Like one time we're talking about we've seen like flights going to Japan, and the flight cost is only around 50,000 won, and that's a round trip ticket. That's a round trip fare from Daegu to a certain point in Japan. So that's very convenient because you don't need to travel by KTX. You just have to probably take the bus or maybe a taxi going to the airport. And it's actually convenient, right? So instead of probably visiting another place, why not visit another country because of the convenience of transportation at the same time cheaper transport costs. And then also the accommodation, the sports facilities, and other information that you can get. People also like to look for the quality of service. What quality of service? Again, service quality is something subjective. So, what might be quality service for you, for others, it might not be. And so, again, it's according to the perception of the person who will be availing or who will be making a decision with regards to the chosen destination. Or another offering of the place is the abundant historical and cultural resources. Like maybe you are limited to a domestic travel and you're thinking of a place that will offer you historical and cultural resources. So you might think of going to probably Gyeongju, okay? And then of course, safety is another thing that invites people. That's why we said that the Middle East is just picking up the number of tourists. It's because it's a place that used to have a war, like the civil war, and people think that the place is not safe, and so now it's the only time that it begins to pick up the arrival of tourists because of the safety issue, safety and yeah. Okay, then also the presence of international metropolises. Why people are attracted to Seoul? Because it's a metropolis. And also, people would like to go, or another factor that can invite people to go to a place, it's because of the peace the hygiene or the cleanliness of the place, and the comfort. Also, familiarity is another thing. Like we have learned that there are some tourists who doesn't prefer adventure, but instead they prefer to go to the same destination over and over again. And I think or the last thing that we can think of, or the last thing in the list, is it's a good place to appreciate nature. So I don't know what you have in mind in terms of nature, but this is also something that invites people to visit the destination. So that's all about it. I mean, for motivation related to travel, we first started with looking into the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We understand the hierarchy of needs according to Maslow's triangle, and then we have seen how it is applied in the tourism activity. We have seen Hudman's motivator for travel. And the last part is the push and the pull theory, which was introduced to us by Don. And again, all of these theories are all related to what we call travel motivation. And as we look at this lesson, or this part of the lesson, we probably can relate to what we are talking about in terms of motivation. What motivates people to travel? What motivates them? It can either be something coming from self, or it can be something that uh, is a feature of the destination. Whatever it may be, okay? So there is a reason, whether coming from the inside or probably an enticement coming from the destination, for you to be motivated and take action. Okay? So I hope you learned something from this one. Again, if there are things not very clear, if you have questions, let's talk about it in the class. And may I also inform you in advance that I will be asking you to use this travel motivation to, again, do a part of your travel project, which is, I think, activity for the next activity. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next video lecture. Bye!